Have you ever been stopped and frisked?
No.
No, I haven't.
It's been so many times until you can't really remember the first time. You feel violated.
They grab him and they grab me and drag us into the street. Pull another officer over who comes and knees me in the chest, and then plants me face down on the street. For me, that was really a turning point where it just exposed kind of the whole thing. That it was the police, sure, but it was the police, the jails, the courts.
I grew up in Washington, D.C., and in D.C. they don't call it stop and frisk, but they have the same sort of martial law where they treat blacks and Latinos like they are criminals already. Judge Shinlin's ruling, what it essentially amounts to, it should be nothing more than a further indictment of this system and what it does to millions of people. I mean, they openly, she admitted that this is unconstitutional, that what this is a violation of the rights of every single person that this happens to in a whole section of black and Latino youth. She says this, she admits this in open court. And the solution, though, to it is not to end it, not to abolish it, but instead to mend it, to repair it, to have some oversight from it from the federal government. Again, it should be punctuated, and we should, take note of her opinions on this. But to say that and then not to call to abolish it is to say nothing more than, hey, we cannot guarantee fundamental rights to an entire section of people. Our system actually cannot do that. Even by your own argument, Mayor Bloomberg, even by the NYPD's own statistics, stop and frisk is incredibly inefficient. Not only does it, not only are the psychological effects upon what it does to, you think about, we hear stories of children who've had their breakfast sandwiches hollowed out to look for quote-unquote drugs, or all the children that are run through school security and treated like human waste, right? You think about the psychological effect of being, of being pronounced a criminal for your entire life, right? And then you also look at, the fact that 89% of the people that they actually stop are completely innocent. You're talking about they can't even issue them any kind of ticket or citation, nothing, that they stop them for absolutely nothing. And then, when you're looking at the actual numbers of weapons that they recover, all of this talk about it keeps guns off of the street. No, this is, by the NYPD's own statistics, it doesn't actually do that. I mean, they make 685,000 stops, right, in 1 year. And over that year, they actually gather less than 1,000 guns. What you're talking about is a less than a 100% of a success rate. Now, what you would have a better chance of finding guns in New York City blindly walking down the street and groping for them in the air. With the Revolution Club, we have a saying called "Fight the power and transform the people for revolution." And actually, what we mean is, it would take, it'll take a revolution and nothing less. The campaign that we helped to initiate, Carl Dix and Cornel West, to raise the level of mass resistance against stop and frisk and, the whole system of mass incarceration is an example of this. Or these whistles is another example of this, right? We raised money to get 20,000 of these whistles out to youth all in places like Brownsville and places in Harlem where youth are stopped and frisked or harassed or, and murdered by police officers. And what youth, we've heard stories back of, the projects being alive with whistles where youth were waking up older generations and putting them on against how to actually resist these attacks. And there's no question that violence among the people is a problem. But the answer to that isn't to criminalize the people, right? The answer to that is actually solve the conditions by which they're forced into conditions of misery and poverty where their only choice is to engage in illegal or illegitimate or criminalized activity.
I think that the judge's ruling was the best ruling I ever heard in a long time. As far as the stop and frisk is concerned, when you get to a core level, to some degree, you kind of need to be watching out because things are going on, and it needs to be, some things need to be monitored. This is a fact.
I've been stopped and frisked 3 times, and they say that this stop and frisk was to prevent guns and stuff on the street. And I don't see why somebody would be grabbing me off the street going through my pockets when I'm clearly a senior citizen. It is a part of harassment, and they just go around involving black men and terrorize us.
Of course you're going to have some racial profiling if it's going to be practiced by some people. But to say that it was system-wide would be impossible to prove, and I completely agree with the mayor.
Well, see, the police department has 2 policies. They police black neighborhoods and they protect white neighborhoods.
I think that as racial profiling. I think it's not an effective way to fight crime.
We have a right to security and we have a right to freedom. And that will always be a tough fight.